I put peanut butter in my friend's drink thinking she was lying about her allergy. I was young, only in the 2nd grade, and had recently been taught about lying. After our lessons on sinning and doing bad stuff, I developed the idea that my friend, let's call her Lily, was lying about her peanut allergy and just didn't like peanut butter but was too ashamed to tell me because they were my favorite snack at the time. Not to mention the times when someone would bring in a snack for the class, and we'd always have to check if they had peanuts in them. If they did, the whole class couldn't eat them so that she wouldn't feel left out. I was tired of what I thought was a dumb, made-up lie and decided to take matters into my own hands by bringing a big jar of peanut butter and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Once it was snack break, I waited until Lily went to the bathroom to take out my peanut butter jar to slip a spoonful into her cup, shaking it well so she wouldn't suspect a thing. Once she came back, she sat down and drank some of her peanut butter-infused water. As she did so, I watched with wide eyes, making sure to take in every detail, now convinced that she's been lying the whole time. Suddenly, Lily started coughing uncontrollably, choking and thrashing herself all over the floor. It also didn't help that she forgot her EpiPen at home that day, causing her to convulse and forcing my teacher to call an ambulance. It turned out she was severely allergic to peanut butter, and I never had the gall to tell her what I had done that day. We're still friends today, and she strongly believes that her father was trying to kill her that day since she got in a fight with him the day before regarding her dead mother. Possibly Lily's post, almost a year later. I thought my dad tried to kill me, but I was wrong. My dad is still alive and not in prison either. He still tried to contact me up until a few weeks ago. It all started when I was younger. I have a severe peanut allergy, and for all of my early elementary schooling, I remember being so disappointed that I couldn't have any of the cool treats everyone brought in for their birthday. And eventually, my teachers decided no one would get anything to keep it fair. But I didn't like that, because it made everyone not like me as much. Early in the morning before school, 2nd grade, my dad and I got into a fight because I wanted to see my mom, but she had just recently passed, and I kept begging him to let me see her. I don't think I was fully out of denial that she was dead, and he shouted at me to shut up. I started crying, and he apologized for like an entire hour afterwards. He made me lunch and sent me on my way. That day at lunch break, I was sitting with my best friend, who I'll call Emily. I had this red plastic cup, water bottle. I removed the lid, and it became a cup with water in it, and I didn't think much about this cup until later. I went to the restroom. I came back. I took a few gulps of water. It tasted strange, but the cup often left weird plastic tastes. And then it started to get hard to breathe. My skin felt like it was covered in insect bites. It was so fucking itchy, my throat wouldn't loosen, I felt terrified, and I later remembered that morning because I was so shaken after the fight with my dad, I had fucking forgotten my EpiPen. In the moment, I wasn't really thinking about anything, just pure panic. So, an ambulance was called, I was rushed inside, and I think I passed out, or my memory blanks, because the next thing I know, I wake up in the hospital with my dad next to me in a chair sleeping. My lips were swollen, my skin was red and itchy, but I could breathe. Well, I never found out who put the peanut butter in my cup, but I was pretty fucking sure it was my dad. After Mum died, he sort of got a bit distant. And then I would always pester him about her, asking to see photos and asking for her. I guess in my stupid teenage brain, it all made sense. I firmly believe my father tried to kill me that day. So I was a little shit to him. I never listened, purposefully disobeyed him, told him he was a horrible person, that he tried to kill his own daughter. I ate alone in my room. I tried to never be in the same room as him. Then I turned 18, and I went to college. I got a dorm thanks to some scholarships. So I cut him off for years. I haven't talked to him for 4 years, almost 5, and then I'm scrolling Reddit a few weeks ago on my main account, and I find a post detailing my experience from Emily's point of view. She put the peanut butter in my cup that day. She let me believe my father was an attempted child murderer. She was still my friend. I couldn't believe it. I immediately called Emily up, and she met me at my house. We had a huge fucking fight. I can't believe her. She fucking lied to me this whole time. If she just fucking admitted that it was her, I wouldn't have cared. Kids are stupid. They do stupid shit. I wouldn't have minded at all. Maybe we would have even laughed about it. But no. I cut off my father for so fucking long. I treated him like shit through my teenage years because of a stupid fucking lie. And I don't know what to do about it. I called my dad and we went to lunch, and it was so awkward. I don't know how to fix this. I'm not sure if this story is true. Some people in the comments were saying it might be fake, But even if it is true, it's a really disturbing thing to imagine letting your friend grow apart from the only parent she has just because you couldn't admit what you did, and somehow they're still friends after all these years. Children can be terrifying, seriously. Am I the a-hole for telling my parents they were horrible and saying they shouldn't have more kids? Hi. First time posting. I, 16 male, was born when my parents were very young. Like my mother was 16 and my father was 17. Both families decided it would be best for me if, effectively, my maternal grandparents raised me and my bio parents got to live their lives. That is not to say I didn't know who my actual parents were. This is not one of those situations, like in movies where the mother pretends the daughter's child is actually her own. I and everyone knew who my progenitors were. My father moved away when he was 18, but my mother remained in my grandparents' house until she was 23, and I was around 7, but that doesn't mean we were close. She always treated me more like an annoying little brother rather than a son. She didn't like spending time with me, never attended any of my school functions, or showed interest in my academic work, or took me to do any fun activities. Whenever I was talking about my day, she would roll her eyes or change the topic to shut me up. When she moved out, I barely saw her. She just came to family gatherings and said an awkward hi, and didn't even look at me. It hurt, even if by that point I already considered my grandparents to be more my parents than hers. My father was still living away. They weren't together at this point, but would come once or twice a year to visit his own family around the holidays, and always made it a point to visit me and take me to do some sort of fun. Activities like going to the cinema or my favorite restaurant, things like that. But to me, he was more like a strange man than a dad, because when I compared him to my friends' fathers who picked them up from school every day and went to their games and played with them on the weekends, I didn't understand why this man, who I saw maybe twice a year, was supposed to be the same. Anyway, fast forward to a year ago. My father moved back to the same city where we live. He tried to hang out with me more often, but I wasn't really interested, although sometimes I complied. I don't hate him, I just don't know him. I even had a bedroom in his apartment, which is cool because he lives in the center of the city. Behind everyone's back, both my parents had started hanging out, and a couple of months later they announced they were dating. It was a shock. They asked me to move in with them to my father's apartment, which I refused, but they argued that we could finally be a family. I was about to start an argument with them when my grandma just said that changing school districts would be very inconvenient, and I could lose all my friends, and the situation de-escalated by itself, although my parents didn't let go of the idea. My parents asked for me to spend more time with them, and this was particularly frustrating because, even though I never had any particular tension with my father, I most definitely do with my mother. Now on to the issue. Last week, they both came into my grandparents' house. They announced they were going to buy a house nearby in the neighborhood so that I can finally move in with them. I immediately said no, and when they said that changing schools would no longer be an issue, I found myself in a corner, and I said that was never the problem, and that I just simply don't see them as my parents and don't want to live with them. That's when they dropped the bomb on us. Not only did they want me to move in with them so we could be a family, but my mother was pregnant, so we were going to be an even bigger family. I was shocked, and I blew my lid on them. I told them they were the worst parents in the world, and that they abandoned me for 16 years, and now they were going to bring another child into the world and do the same to them. And they never apologized for treating me like garbage and like a mistake they made, and making me feel like I wasn't supposed to exist and dumping me to be other people's responsibility. And only now that they feel like they care, they want to be my family. My mother screamed back at me telling me I was a brat, and that she wasn't going to make the same mistakes twice raising her second baby. And I told her she never raised me to begin with, and my father said that they were young, and trying to do the best they could. Well, guess what? The best you could was pretty effing bad. I stormed out and went to my room sobbing. I've been very depressed for the last week. They have both called and texted since, but I ignored them. My grandparents agree with me that I shouldn't move, and that my parents shouldn't expect me to be all loving and forgiving after how they've treated me. However, they believe they are starting a new chapter of their lives now that they are more mature and stable, which I guess leaves me behind. I've also had time to think that I'm the same age my mother was when she had me, and what a huge responsibility that must have been. However, I still can't forgive them. Am I the a-hole for the way I reacted to the news? Edit. Thank you everyone for the verdict of not the a-hole. I feel better, and it has somewhat cleared my mind. Also, huge thank you to all who are commenting about how awesome my grandparents are. I'm planning on showing them this post so they can see how much everyone can see the amazing kind of people they are, and they deserve all the love and appreciation I could possibly give them. And more, I've also come to the conclusion that I have a lot of resentments and unanswered questions, as well as misgivings about the future that I need to set straight with primarily my father. He needs to know how I grew up, and I need to know why he abandoned me. I also feel like I need to warn him about my mother, because I am worried about my sibling being abandoned and mistreated like I was, so I'm preparing a list of points and questions that I want to bring up to him. And we'll meet tomorrow or the day after. And I'll confront him with all of these to hopefully get some sort of closure or resolution. Update 1. Hi everyone. Thank you all for the responses. It really helped a lot. It's been an emotional couple of days, and a lot has happened. My mind is a little bit dispersed, but I felt like I owed you all an update, and I'm going to try to be as clear as possible. For those of you who didn't read my original post, the gist of it basically was that my parents had me when they were very young. They got separated and left me to be raised by my maternal grandparents. My mother was around, but couldn't care less about me. But my dad went away, and we had very sporadic but positive contact. Now he's come back, they're back together, they're having a new baby, and want me back into their lives. I refused and told them they're horrible and shouldn't have kids. Which brings us to the OG post. First of all, I shared my post with my grandparents, and they were so surprised by it. They were very happy to see how many people commented about how amazing they are, and I, in turn, also took the opportunity to tell them how much I loved them and how much I appreciated everything they had ever done for me. They are my real parents, and nothing is ever going to change that. There were some tears, and they told me they loved me and how proud they were of me. They never thought of themselves as doing something special or worth so much appreciation. They were just taking care of family, but they are the best. After that, I started trying to collect my thoughts and arrange a meeting with my father to discuss the things that were bothering me. Why did he abandon me? Why did he think he could just reappear into my life like that? That I wasn't going to move in with them, and I didn't consider them my parents because they never acted as such, etc. We met at a park, and he went to hug me. But I stepped away, and he looked hurt. And he just apologized for what happened the other day, and went into this speech about how we could try to transition into living together part-time and respect my boundaries, and I went blank. I didn't expect him to talk, so I pulled out my phone and just showed him the post I made the other day, and he started reading it in silence. After a while, he read it all and some responses, and he just asked me if this was true, and I said yes, and he asked me if I had questions, and he would answer honestly. I asked what happened when I was born, and he told me that when my mother got pregnant, all options were laid on the table. Abortion, adoption, marriage, Gramps taking care of me, only one of my parents taking me in. My mother was dead scared of adoption because some religious group had told them some horror story about dead babies and mothers being killers or some BS like that. So she wanted to give me up for adoption, but my father refused. He couldn't bear the idea of having his child living somewhere and never seeing him again. So he proposed taking me in as sole caretaker and leaving his college plans to stay in our city. But his parents weren't thrilled with this plan and pushed him to go to college so that he could provide economically for me. They offered themselves to take care of me, but they were significantly older than my maternal grandparents. She was an only child, and at the time they were just 40, whereas my father has 5 older siblings, and his parents were already in their 60s. And since taking care of me meant taking care of my mother for a while as well, my maternal grandparents decided it was the best decision for them to take me. Also, immediately after I was born, my mother had postnatal depression, and the doctors advised them not to completely remove me from her side, or more damage to our relationship could be done, and my grandparents wanted her to eventually love me as a son. One thing to note about my father that I didn't mention in my original post is that even when he was in college, he worked part-time to pay child support, and once he started working in a law firm, he started sending more money to my grandparents and set up a college fund for me, which was news to me. My grandparents don't know about this, but my mother does, so I don't know what to do with this information. My father thought of me all the time he spent away, and believed he had left me with a happy family, and that he was working to give me a better life. But I followed his life through social media. He went to parties, vacations, had girlfriends, and did lots of fun stuff, and barely had any contact with me. I asked him why couldn't he have made more of an effort to be a part of my life. Like, I understand if he needed to study in another city and work there, but it's no effort to call or text. Coming once a year just doesn't cut it. He looked ashamed and apologized to me, and I took advice that I saw in a lot of the comments here that I would forgive, but not forget, and that maybe we can build a relationship going forward, but it will always be marked by his actions in the past. If he hasn't been my dad for 16 years, he can't start now. He seemed sad but accepted my conditions. I then told him about my concerns about my mother and told him how badly she treated me as a child, that I did not think she would be a good mother for my sibling, and that I wanted to go low or no contact with her. He said that after he left for college and they broke up, he would call her once in a while to check up on things. But that quickly ended. And when he came back, she explained to him that she and I had a great bond. And even though we didn't see each other daily, it was because I was in those teenage years, and that she loved spending time with me, and had been a very hands-on mom. I told him that all that she said was a lie, and that she never cared for me. He obviously read the stuff from my posts, but I also told him other things, like when she would ask my grandparents for babysitting money for taking care of me, or that she would call me annoying or disgusting to my face when we still lived together. And that severely messed me up. He was very serious and said he would talk to her, but that he really would not allow a child to be treated like that, and that he was sorry for letting that happen to me. Lastly, he told me I would have a bedroom in his house, but he understood perfectly that I would never live there. He was quite emotional at this point, and got choked up when he asked me if even if I didn't consider him my father, I would consider his baby my sibling. I said of course, and that I planned to be a very active part in their life if I could. He started crying and asked if he could hug me, and this time I agreed. I am happy about the resolution of our conversation, and I really do believe he will be a good parent for my sibling. Once again, thanks to everyone who commented and took interest in my story. I don't know if I'll update again. Update 2. So a lot of you warned me about the shit hitting the fan, so to speak, when my bio mother talked with my dad, and today that's exactly what happened. My father sent me a text early in the morning, warning me about the fact that he was going to confront my mother, and that he didn't want anything to splash on me, and reassured me that he believed me completely, and I braced myself because I expected her to call me, berating me or something. Using Reddit. To vent has been helpful though. After a few hours my mother pulled into our house, and let herself in screaming like mad, and calling me every name in the book, saying I had ruined her relationship, and asking me why had I been blabbing about private matters that don't concern anybody. I said that my childhood matters to me, and my father, who is also going to be the future father of her child, and that her actions ruined her relationship. She called me an asshole and said I was the biggest fucking mistake she's ever made in her life. I didn't know she could still hurt me, but that was a low blow. And I said that I would do anything in my power to take her baby away from her, because she was a monster of a mother. We were screaming at this point, and my grandparents, who were in the backyard, must have heard us and entered the room and separated us and heard part of the fight. I was fighting tears, and my grandma walked me upstairs to my room as my grandpa screamed at my mother. How dare she speak to me that way? My grandma soothed me a little and then went to confront my mother with my grandpa. I heard from the door how they ripped my mother a new one. They confronted her for telling me the things that she did, for treating me like garbage all my life, and for lying to my father. They told her how disappointed they were in her for always treating me with disgust, and how many excuses they made for her, thinking she was a child trying to raise a child, but she was now an adult, and her behavior continued the same, and they said they were on the path of disinheriting her. My mother was screaming about how hard it had been for her and how much she hurt, but my grandparents were having none of that. They raised me, and she was allowed to have the life she wanted and to take all the decisions she wanted without repercussions ever, and I even heard them say that if any custody battle ensued over the baby to come, they would take the father's side unless she radically changed everything about her behavior. They went outside for a while, so I don't know what they said, but eventually they came into my room, and my grandparents looked extremely serious. And my mother was red and crying and apologized to me through gritted teeth. I didn't respond, but my grandparents said on her behalf that she was going to start therapy immediately, and she was no longer welcome in the house. I called my father after the debacle, and he was furious. He talked to my mother before going to a work meeting thing or something, and he confronted her about everything. Apparently, it was nasty, but he was willing to work on the relationship for the good of the baby on the condition that my mother would also be working on improving her relationship with me, so that whenever I visited them, I wouldn't feel uncomfortable. After he left, he made her promise she wouldn't contact me until they talked again, but there's my mother for you folks. I asked him to think about what's best for himself and for the baby, and to not hold today against my mother if he doesn't want to. Also, a thing that has come up a lot in the comments of my previous posts is that my progenitors only want me as a babysitter and that I should steer away from them and the baby for my own sake, but I want to make a point about that. I can't say anything about their intentions. I know nothing about that, but I am really very excited to have a sibling. Growing up, I had a very small family. It was just my grandparents and me. On my paternal side, I had a huge family with aunts, uncles, and cousins. But whenever I went there, I always felt like the odd one out. They tried to include me and invited me for Easter, Christmas, BBQs and stuff. But I didn't really know them. And although they were nice, I always felt like I had a big sign on my head that said, "That kid John had in high school." I can't wait to have a sibling and love them and always be there for them and show them what a family is. I want to be that person they can always rely on, and I want to feel that bond with someone. So even if I have my misgivings about my parents, and I do a lot, I do not about being a big brother. I hope this is the last update, and there is no more family drama in the future. Thank you all for all your help. Having this site to wear out my frustrations, and having a community to back me up and give me feedback has been amazing. And you truly have helped me out a lot to deal with all of this. So really, thank you so much. Update 3. Hi everyone. I posted a few months back about my situation, and I just saw someone put my story on TikTok, lol. So I checked back on this account and saw that I still had some notifications asking for an update. So here it is. Well, first of all, my grandparents are as cool as ever. I have not moved, nor do I intend to, and we spent Christmas together. It was all great. My father and I have bonded more, and we are in a better place. He is paying for my therapy, and we've done a couple of sessions together, and we're in a much better place. He feels sorry for having lost my childhood years, but understands he cannot get them back, and instead of pushing a relationship with me, he is letting me have my space to build as much of a relationship as I want with him, which takes the pressure off of me, to be honest. We've kind of bonded over my little sister. We found out it's going to be a girl, and I helped him paint the nursery and build the furniture, which I enjoyed a lot. He and my egg donor are in a bit of a weird situation. They live together, but they're not together. My father is extremely angry about everything that she did and said to me when I was little, and what I related in my previous post, and he is wary about what kind of person she really is going to be with my baby sister. They're going to couples therapy and individual therapy. And although I see her in passing because I go sometimes to my father's house, she is just barely polite with me. And I can tell she feels like I'm the one who screwed up her opportunity to play house with her second baby. I try to pay her no mind, but the only thing that worries me is if she eventually is going to poison my little sister's mind against me, or subject her to similar mistreatment like she did to me, because she is also going to be born around all this tension. The silver lining is that everyone else is showing up for my little sister, and that means I've also connected much more with my father's side of the family. They've always been kind to me, but I always felt weird around them. But now that things with my father seem to be settling into a more comfortable way, I feel like I belong to his family more, and I can hang out with my cousins, aunts, and uncles more. Sorry if it's not much of an update, but here's how things lie at the moment. Update 4. So it's been a while, but recent developments have brought me back here to give you all a bit of an update. First of all, thank you. Everyone who has messaged me and shown me that my situation and I are on their minds. It helps a lot. To do a bit of a recap and avoid all of you going through the entire saga, my parents had me in their teens. They left me to be raised by my maternal grandparents, which turned out to be the perfect family for me. My egg donor was somewhat in my life growing up, but she was nasty and toxic to me. My dad was absent most of the time, but he was a more positive force in my life. They got together about 2 years ago and tried to make me, now 17, move in with them, to which I refused, and they also announced they were expecting, which sent me off, and I lashed out at them. That opened the Pandora's box of lies and manipulation that my egg donor had been feeding my father for years, and created an overall messy situation with her blaming me for everything. My father and I have been developing a stronger relationship, and we've become quite close, although I still have some barriers up. My egg donor has been giving me the cold shoulder for the remainder of the pregnancy, and my father was considering whether or not to try to continue the relationship. This brings us to present times. They had a daughter named Ella, who is the most beautiful, charming, and cute baby I have ever seen. My father was ecstatic when she was being delivered, and asked me if I wanted to remain in the hospital during the labor, which I happily agreed to. It was amazing to see my sister for the first time, and my father and I both cried while holding her. My egg donor, on the other hand, looked at her with little care and tried to pass her off to whoever was around so she wouldn't have to hold her. The relationship of my parents at this moment was on thin ice, but the maternal spirit that my mother thought she would develop with this child never materialized. When they got home, they received dozens of visits from relatives and friends, and my dad had to take care of everything because my egg donor refused to even be near the baby. Doctors worried she must have been suffering from postpartum depression, but she refused to accept help or counsel. I tried to be gentler to her these days to ease her mental state, but things just got worse. It all came to a head a few days ago when my father went to do the groceries and saw on the nanny cam that the egg donor was cursing at Ella, and by the time he made it home, my mother was actually slapping the baby. My father got furious, and she just responded by saying something along the lines of, "These kids are trying to keep us apart. We should get rid of them." My father called the police and had my mother forcibly taken to have a psych evaluation. I rushed to his side when I got wind of it. Luckily, my sister is all right. While my egg donor was in the psych evaluation, my father decided that she could no longer live under the same roof as her, and he had to take my sister away from her mother. I came up with the plan that when my mother was released she could go rest and start treatment at my grandparents' while I would move in with my father for a while to help him out and avoid drama. Ironically, all of this started because I didn't want to live with my dad, and now that's where I am. My grandparents keep me updated on my egg donor's progress. There are days where she feels truly ashamed of what she did and wants to go back to my dad, others where she is lethargic and non-responsive, and others where she seems happy and content and talks about a clean slate. There will be a court proceeding over the custody of Ella, but we've gotten some sort of emergency ruling granting my dad full custody at the moment. Anyway, things are a bit of a mess, and I wish things hadn't turned out the way they have. Hopefully, I will still be able to be around my sister, and whatever is happening to my egg donor can be addressed so she can get better. My grandparents are so destroyed with all that is happening with their daughter that they are having a hard time coping, but they come nearly every day to check on Ella and me, which is nice. My dad is also very distraught, and even though he is now categorically rejecting the idea of ever getting back together with my egg donor, he still feels sad to see how a mother can treat her baby, and he is mourning the relationship and the life he thought he would have. On my part, I've been busy with school, and even though I try to understand that my mother is sick, I can't seem to forgive her for what she's done to Ella. If this was her first incident of being negligent or violent, I might be more understanding. But I feel like she is going to be as toxic to my sister as she has always been to me, and I don't want her near us for a second. Wow. I have to say one thing I actually do like about this generation is how much more cautious people are with unplanned pregnancies. These days, it's usually women who are truly ready that end up having children. I really feel for Opie. The father was reckless, ignorant, and completely unbothered at first, but at least he eventually tried to take some accountability and make amends. Opie might have forgiven him, but I know he certainly still has his guard up. But the mother? God. The fact that she even wants another child is wild to me. She seems deeply unwell and clearly only cares about herself. I hope she gets the healing she needs, but far away from Opie and his little sister. Still, I've got this gut feeling that she and the dad might end up back together. That's just how these things go sometimes. I'm the kid of one of those traveling RV families online, and I hate them for it every day. My parents decided when I was only around 7 years old, far too young to get an opinion on anything, to pack us up and move into an RV to travel around the US. My dad works online, and my mom makes content online. She's not huge by any means, but big enough that we get recognized sometimes, and big enough that I've had a camera shoved in my face for as long as I can remember. For my privacy's sake, I won't say anything else on that, and I'm using a throwaway account because I've gotten enough attention already, and I'm sick of it. I sleep in a tiny bunk bed that I outgrew years ago, and the other bunk is the only space I have to put anything I own. I don't even have a room, just a curtain, and thank God I'm an only child or else I would have to share the small space I have already. I was homeschooled for most of my education, and then switched to online school at my own insistence for high school. I'm an 18-year-old girl. I don't have a single friend in person, because the longest I've ever stayed anywhere is a month. I don't have a job and no way to get one because of not being stationary unless I find one online, which also means I have no way to move out and get away from them. I've had conversations with them about all of this countless times, and they are so delusional and genuinely believe that a nomadic existence is the best way to live. So why would I ever need anything else? I hate them for treating me like some pet. They can just drag along in their plans rather than their child. I hate traveling, I don't like heat, I hate dealing with bugs, and I'm so sick of hiking. I can't wait for the day that I finally figure out a way to get away from them with their morning hikes and cameras in my face. I've traveled around the US, yeah, but God forbid I want to have a normal life, go to college, or maybe even make some friends. That's asking too much. Update. Hello. Barely over a week ago, I made a post talking about my very negative experience living in an RV with my parents for around 10 years now. Despite it being such a short time since I've posted, a lot has changed for me since then. I don't know how many people here would be interested in an update on my situation, but I know quite a few people were very concerned and would probably appreciate an update, so here it is. Also, fair warning, this is a fairly lengthy post. I had a lot of people give me really helpful advice, resources, as well as even offers to try to help personally, some being questionable, admittedly, but a majority being genuinely concerned, wanting to try to help, and I very much appreciate that. It was slightly overwhelming, to be honest, and I ended up not responding to a lot of people, so you'll all have to forgive me for that. But even if I didn't respond much, I have been doing research on a lot of the information people gave me. Something that stood out to me was people asking if I had any family I could stay with, to which I had to respond. Not that I know of, because I don't have anyone on my dad's side of the family, and my mom is strictly no contact with her family. I did not know if they were alive, if they cut her off, if she cut them off, or even any details about them, and my mom had never wanted to talk about it. What information I did have was my mom's maiden name, which is pretty uncommon, and where she was born, which, in terms of trying to find family, can actually get you surprisingly far, I've come to realize. I've always had a slight hatred for the internet, because I never had any choice in my life being public knowledge, and I know that once something is out there, it's out there, but for the first time, I'm actually really grateful for the internet. I was able to find some information on my mother's side of the family, and specifically was able to find my grandma's Facebook account, though it did take me some effort. After a lot of stressing on how to approach messaging her, if I even should, as well as potential outcomes, I messaged her, explaining my mom's life, who I was, and my situation. I won't go into details on why my grandma and my mom are no contact, because that is not my story to share. But my grandma was appalled that she has a granddaughter she didn't even know about, and even more so at the way in which her daughter raised me. I found out I have an aunt and an uncle, both of whom my grandma told about me and my situation. I've been in pretty much constant contact with all of them since, just learning about each other. All of them want to help me get out of this living situation with my parents, and luckily, with me being 18 now, it's actually possible. Again, I don't feel entirely comfortable going into details, but I have arrangements to go stay with my aunt, who lives in a big city on the West Coast that has a lot of potential opportunities for me to start college, or whatever I see fit, which I do plan on figuring out college, happy to announce. My uncle has kids, but my aunt lives on her own and has a spare bedroom, which she has no problem letting me stay in for as long as necessary. I have a train ticket scheduled and purchased by my aunt and enough money to get to the station. I'm talking with my family, still feels weird to type currently, and trying to plan out the details like how or if I'm going to tell my parents. My mom doesn't know any information on where any of her family lives, so even if I were to tell my parents who I'm going to live with, they wouldn't know where I was specifically. Someone pointed out that if I did leave without telling them, I should leave a note or some form of proof that I left willingly. So if I do opt out of a conversation, I'm planning on either leaving a note or filming a video explaining my plans and why I'm leaving, which would be kind of ironic, wouldn't it? Update 2. Hello, it's been a while, and I wanted to check in here to hopefully give a few people some peace of mind. In my last update, I explained that I had gotten in contact with my mother's side of the family and had a place to go stay. I can proudly announce that I did it, and I'm in a safe place now, totally away from my parents with absolutely zero contact. My aunt is an absolute angel, truly. She's so kind, and that's not even including my grandma and uncle. When I first got here, my aunt, as well as my grandma, took me out on a little shopping spree, bought me clothes, decor, and furniture for my room, because I have one of those now. And honestly, anything they thought I would need. My uncle has introduced me to my cousins. He has a younger son and a daughter who's very close in age to me, and I would say that we have become friends. I've been able to go out and do a lot of fun little things with her. My aunt is currently helping me research colleges near us, but has reassured me I can do everything at my own pace. And there really is no rush that her home will always have a spot for me. My aunt in general is such a cool person. She's someone I very quickly have started to look up to and have gotten close to. The more time we spend together, the more we learn that we actually have a lot in common. I'm just so grateful to all of them for being here and being so supportive. My aunt is also really helping me figure out who I am as an individual. For the first time, I'm in charge of my identity, what I share, and who I share it with. I dyed and cut my hair, got a nickname, and have been exclusively going by it. My cousin is currently on a journey to help me learn about what makeup I like. She's also introducing me to her favorite music groups as a self-proclaimed cringe-but-free K-pop fan. I have an entirely private Instagram account with all of 5 followers, and I plan on keeping it that way. I just feel like a normal teenage girl for once, and I've never felt happier. When I look in the mirror, or just think about my life in general, I'm actually happy with it. I guess I never realized that I wasn't comfortable in my identity as a person, because, honestly, I had bigger things to worry about. Regarding my mom filming, I've been very quiet around my parents, and just refusing to talk when the camera's on, but neither one of them has mentioned it yet. So far, luckily. Also, speaking of my mom's content, I would like to very much emphasize something quickly. Almost everyone was genuinely trying to help, but I had a few people replying, trying to guess who I was. Luckily, the few I saw were basically torn to shreds and ended up deleting their comments. I also had a few people who messaged me privately, trying to make a guess at who I am, which at least that's not public, I guess. Although I can understand being curious, I posted anonymously with very little personal information for a reason. As I stated in my previous post, I have gotten enough attention, and I'm very much sick of it. I would very much appreciate it if you guys can respect that. Even if you think you might know who I am, please don't make public guesses and understand that I don't want this to be even more public information tied to my name. Very long story short, I have set plans to leave as well as a safe place to go with my aunt once I do, and I very much appreciate so many people for being so willing to help. If you had told me not even 2 weeks ago that not only would I have a plan to move away from my parents, but contact with family members I didn't even know existed, I don't think I would have believed it. This is all more than I could have ever imagined, and honestly, I have a hard time even processing it sometimes. I am officially in therapy though, so maybe I can start working on that as well as processing my past and how it plays into my identity in the future. My new therapist is actually part of the reason I'm making this update. She thinks that posting this could be a good way to get closure to a certain extent, as a way of acknowledging what I went through, but also moving on into my new life because I have my whole future ahead of me, one that I am very excited to experience. So keeping that in mind, this will be my final update here. I want to be able to enjoy my life and future while keeping my privacy. A lot of people really wanted me to share my story more, expose my past, but at least for now, I've decided against that. It's my story, and I can choose to share it or not. For once, I have control over who gets to know what information about me, and I'm not willing to give that up yet, but I suppose I don't know what the future holds. So I'm asking as nicely as possible that people please respect that. I absolutely appreciate the support and advice so many have given me, and just know I'm safe. I can honestly say that I'm happy, I'm planning out my future, what I want to do with my life, and who I am besides just a persona on camera. So thank you so much for everything, and goodbye. I don't have much to say about this one. Just that I'm really glad the family she ended up with turned out to be good people. Honestly, family vloggers really need to think about their kids. If you want to share your own life online, that's one thing. But dragging your children into it, especially when they're too young to understand or give real consent, is just so damaging. I'm happy Opie finally has a shot at normal life. And that's honestly the best possible outcome. Wishing her nothing but peace and healing. I was an accident, and after years of negligence, I told my family I wished they had aborted me or given me up for adoption. I was basically an accident. When I was born, my siblings were 16 male, 18 female, 20 female, 23 female, and my parents were both 46. I was never abused in my childhood, but I was neglected and my entire family resented me. My parents didn't really think that they would get pregnant again, but here we are. I was never really looked after by anyone and basically had to raise myself. No one ever really spent any time with me or played with me or anything when I was a kid. They didn't ever buy anything significant for me, just handed me my siblings' clothes and things. I realized this as I got older, so I focused on myself. My thought process at the time was that there was something wrong with me because my siblings were loved by them, so if I improved myself and did things for them, maybe then they would accept me and love me. I always got the best grades in school. My father was a football enthusiast and played in high school, but I was a basketball lover. I still dropped it and took up football just to make him proud. I made sure I did all my chores readily and always kept my room clean, but nothing I did was ever enough for them. For example, if I was first in class, my parents would ask me why I didn't get a higher score. They ignored the percentile, but focused on the percentage and things like that. My siblings or parents never even bothered to show up for a single game. I was never appreciated for what I was. They only detested me for what I wasn't. My siblings also did not allow me to hang out with them at any time at all. We celebrated my father's birthday yesterday. I am 16 today. My siblings do not live with us anymore, and my mother had to leave early and would not return until later in the evening, so it was just me and him for the day. I decided to serve him breakfast in his bed. Just as he woke up, I cooked and bought him a tie for a present. I know it's not the best present, but I was on a budget. Nothing too extravagant because I want to save as much money as possible for college, but it was definitely a smart one. I also cooked lunch for us and took care of all the chores. The most he could come up with was a pathetic thank you, and it was clear he wanted me to leave him alone, so I did just that. We all went out, siblings included, to a dinner, and the way these would go is that they would all have a good time, and I would just sit in the corner. This is the case with almost all family dinners we have ever attended. We went back home, and I don't know why, I really don't know what triggered it, but for some reason I just started crying all of a sudden. Maybe it was them being so happy together, I don't know. When they asked me what happened, I just blew up at them and told them how I felt about my entire childhood, how they never showed me any kind of love and affection, among other things. I don't know exactly what I said, but I do remember I ended it by saying that I wished that they had aborted me if they hated me so much or could have given me up for adoption, so they could all live their lives without me. My elder sister started to say something, but I just ran up to my room, closed the door, and went to sleep listening to some Hans Zimmer because they just kept knocking at the door. Early this morning I went out my window and went to a secluded spot that I often go to, usually to play some guitar or just pace around listening to music or enjoy the sound of nature. I'm sitting here right now, writing this on my phone at 4:30 a.m. and don't know what to do at all. I'm sorry if I just went on a rant, but this is the first time that I have been able to tell my childhood to anyone. Now, how exactly do I tackle this problem? I have pretty much given up on my family and have spent enough of my time trying to please them. Do I still try to form any kind of bond with them? Do I completely drop them off? What exactly is the best thing to do here? First of all, I want to thank everyone for the amount of support that you guys have given. It was really overwhelming, and I can't express in words how much that meant to me. I was reading all the comments and everything until about 11 to 12, then decided to go home to face the family. I arrived home to quite a melancholic environment. As soon as I arrived, the first thing they all did was hug me, which honestly surprised me. This was probably the first time in years they were showing me any kind of affection. They had prepared some food for me, and after I ate, we all had a talk. My oldest nephew, 2 years younger than me, who often reads posts from this sub, saw it and showed it to my sister. They all first apologized for the way they treated me. They confirmed that I was an accident and none of them wanted to deal with another baby, and I basically messed up their life plans. They didn't word it this way. They didn't really want to do anything with me, so they just started ignoring me because I never seemed to need anything from them. Their reasoning was that I was always doing great in life. I always did my chores on time, kept my things neat and clean as a kid, always got good grades, never complained about anything, and did great in sports. They just assumed that I never required or wanted anything from them, so they were able to just keep ignoring me and pretend as if I wasn't there, basically. They said that this didn't justify their behavior, especially after they read the post. They just wanted to explain their own actions. I just made it easy for them to ignore me. They all asked me to forgive them for alienating me, and they said that they would do their best from now on to make me feel as if I was a part of the family. They then wanted to go out and celebrate my birthday, but I was just mentally and physically exhausted, so I just went to sleep, woke up in the evening, and ended up playing games for the rest of the night, and went back to sleep. I don't really know how to feel about this. I thought about it long and hard, and decided I'll try to form some kind of bond with them, if that's even possible. The one thing I'll do is try to start to work and live for just myself right now. My priority is getting to college right now, and I'll mainly work toward that. If reconciliation doesn't work out, at least I have a goal and purpose in life to work toward until I get away from here. Thank you so much for helping me and supporting me through all this. If you guys have any further questions, please feel free to ask me. And once again, thank you. When I was around 10, I met a strange boy who seemed to appear from nowhere. He and I became super close friends, but after about a year, he disappeared. I never found a way of contacting him again. This is going to be a long one, so you'll have to bear with me while I try to explain everything. Okay, so I was probably around 10 or 11 years old the first time I remember the boy turning up. It was the middle of summer, and my friends and I were swimming in a lake in one of my parents' fields. I grew up in a small farming town with a population of no more than 200, so everyone knew everyone. There were 2 schools in the town, one for boys and one for girls. I'm not sure why they split them by gender, and I'm pretty sure both have merged now, but that's what it was like when I lived there. I'm going to tell it how I remember it happening, but my friend who was there at the time remembers it slightly differently than I do. So, as I was saying, my friends, I think there were about 4 of us in total, and I was swimming in the lake at the bottom of one of my parents' fields. It was about a 15-minute walk from my main house. We had been playing there for a while when we heard someone calling to us. We looked over and saw the boy standing at the edge of the lake, completely naked. Once we noticed him, he shouted if he could play with us. He looked to be around the same age as us, maybe a little older, but not by much. He was super pale, like white pale. I remember being amazed and kind of jealous of his super bright green eyes. He also had shoulder-length white blonde hair, like Draco Malfoy blonde. I looked to my friends, and we said yeah, and he came into the lake with us. None of us recognized him, which, as I said, was weird because we had all lived in this tiny town our whole lives, and everyone basically knew everyone living there. He introduced himself as Richard, but he said he preferred if we called him Richie, so we did. I remember asking Richie where he was from, but he would go all awkward, and would never give a straight answer anyway. After a while more of playing in the lake, Richie seemed fun, and I invited him to come back to my house for supper. He straightway said he would love to come, and my friend was like, "Don't you need to ask your mum?" To which Richie said something like, "Oh, she won't mind." Remember how I said Richie was completely naked? Well, that wasn't so strange. In fact, I'm pretty sure we all were. My friends and I were all boys, and we would skinny dip in the lake normally, so it didn't stick out to me when he first arrived like that. But what did stick out to me was, when we got out of the lake, dried, and dressed ourselves, Richie had no clothes with him to get dressed into, which I remember thinking was super weird. He said something like, "I must have forgotten to bring them," which again I thought was very weird. Like, how do you forget your clothes? I wasn't sure how my parents would react to me bringing home a naked boy, so I gave him my briefs and my overshirt to put on. But yeah, that stuck out as very odd. My friends went back home, and Richie and I went to my house. My dad was like, "Where are his clothes?" I just made something up. I'm pretty sure I said something like his clothes got wet, so we left them in the sun to dry. I got him some trousers to put on. We ate supper, which I remember him having 3 or 4 plates of. As I said, Richie was a super skinny boy. I was pretty small and skinny at the time, but he was definitely skinnier than I was, so I was confused how he ate so much, lol. Richie was super polite and sweet to everyone while he was at my house. After supper I took him upstairs to my room, and we played on my Nintendo 64 together. He had never seen one before, and was super amazed by it at the time. I thought he had never seen one, because they were so old. This was 2010, but my family was poor, and that's all I had. It started to get dark, and I asked him if he wanted to sleep over. He was really excited by that, and said yeah. I checked with my parents, but I knew they wouldn't mind, because they were both super drunk, so we continued playing on the N64 until it was super late. After a while, I said it was time that we went to bed as I was tired, but I don't remember him seeming tired at all. Richie asked if he could shower before, as we had been playing in my fields, and he was really muddy. As he was showering, I made my bed for us and put a movie on the TV for us to watch as we went to sleep, and I got into bed. Richie came in like 5 minutes later and was completely naked again. I was like, "Did you walk from the bathroom like that?" He was like, "Yeah," and didn't seem to care at all, so even though I thought it was strange, I didn't say anything. He got into my bed. I asked him if he wanted any pajamas, and he said no, it was too hot, which, to be fair, I do remember it being really hot that day. I had a Scooby-Doo movie on, and he was really excited by it, and didn't know anything about them, which I guess isn't too weird. But looking back, he didn't seem to know any pop culture stuff at all. I mean, we were pretty behind the times in my small town, but we still knew most pop culture. I had slept in quite a lot the next day, but when I woke up, Richie wasn't in my room. I went and asked my mom if she'd seen him, and she said he left early that morning after his parents rang our house. How they knew he was with us or where to ring, I'm still not sure. Richie had taken some shorts from my room because my mom said he couldn't leave without clothes on. I was a little disappointed he left without me, or at least without saying goodbye, or without leaving any way of contacting him again. He turned up again a couple of days later when my friends and I were swimming in the lake again. This time he brought clothes, but I'm pretty sure he only brought some briefs and a shirt with no pants, which again, I thought was weird. Over the next year, he and I became super close. We were like brothers. Over the year, I asked if I could see his home or meet his family. But anytime I asked anything personal about him, he would go awkward and not want to talk about it, or he would just change the subject. But I could see it made him feel uncomfortable, so I didn't push him to tell me. He did tell me he was homeschooled, which I thought was cool because in my mind, that meant no school. As I said, we became really close over the year. I felt like he was more than a friend to me. It's difficult to explain. It's almost like we clicked from the first time we met. We became close really quickly, and I felt like I could tell him anything, and he would always help and support me. He helped me through so many hard times, and he definitely encouraged me to be a better person. It was almost as if he could sense when I was going through anything. For example, when my grandma passed away, I went out into my fields to cry as I didn't want to do it in front of my family, but after sitting down in some random place, Richie turned up and sat next to me. He said some things that I remember helping me a lot. When I asked him how he found me, he said that he was just on a walk. Not too long after this, he just vanished. It had been a little over a year since the first time he appeared at the lake. It was around September the year after, so it had been around a year and 2 or 3 months. He never turned up again, never said goodbye, never left a trace. I was massively upset. I really missed him. I would walk around the fields looking for him, and I would hang out by the lake where we first met, hoping that he would turn up, but he never did again. I still don't know what happened to him. I've tried searching social media for him, but with no luck, and since he would never tell me that much about his life, I don't have that much to go on. I asked my parents what they remember of him. They said they remember him being odd, and that they were unsure about him at first, especially how he had a tendency to strip naked whenever he felt like it, but they also said that he and I were inseparable, and wherever I was he was sure to be found there too. They said they remember me being heartbroken when he stopped appearing, and they weren't sure whether they should call the police about him being gone, but they never did. I kind of wish they did. I suppose this is a long shot, but if you are reading this, Richie, reach out to me. I'd love to speak to you again, and get some answers to all the weird things about you. It's completely possible that there isn't anything paranormal about Richie, but it is definitely strange. Update. I am visiting my parents for a couple of weeks. I will search the house for any photos of Richie and me that I could share here. Though with 7 older brothers and a lot of family photos, I'm not sure I'll find anything. Also, there is a fun day at the local church to celebrate the school's breaking up for the summer holiday. As suggested by a commenter, I am going to attend the coffee morning, where all the old people who live in the village go, even if this means waking up at 7 a.m. I am going to be asking around to see if anyone remembers Richie. I will update this thread tomorrow if I find anything. Thank you, everyone, for your help. Update 2. I have asked around at my local church today. No one seemed to remember Richie. I started to lose a little hope. But word must have spread around that I was looking for someone, because an old lady, I'll call her Sharon in this, who I know but haven't ever really spoken to before, came up to me. She says she thinks she might know Richie's maternal great-aunt. She is going to try to find the contact details for me, so I can reach out and see if the great-aunt has any info on Richie. Sharon says if Richie does belong to the family she's thinking of, then he would have lived at a cottage around an hour and 15-minute walk from the main village. She said the cottage is secluded, with no neighbors. Sharon has no idea why they disappeared, but she said she isn't that close to Richie's great-aunt. I hope this is good news. I might actually be a step closer to finding Richie again. I'll update with any more news if I find any. I am hoping that this possible aunt is still alive and hasn't changed contact details. Wish me luck. Update 3. I have contacted Richie's potential great aunt, PGA for short, LOL, with no luck. I called the number that Sharon gave to me a couple of times with no answer, though I have left a message explaining who I am. I sent a letter first class to the address that Sharon gave me as well, which should get there tomorrow or the day after. Hopefully, the PGA is still living at the address, and I am able to get some answers. In the letter, I also explained why I was interested in contacting her, and I gave my phone number if she would like to call me instead of writing back. I will update as soon as I have anything new. Oh, and one more thing. I visited the cottage where Sharon thought Richie could have been living. The cottage is abandoned and run down. It seems likely that he could have been living there. It gave off massive creepy vibes though. Update 4. I have heard back from the PGA. I'll name her Jane. Someone suggested that I check if the number was linked to any apps like WhatsApp. It was, and I reached out to Jane on there. This seemed to do the trick, and she messaged me back relatively quickly. After describing Richie to her, she said pretty confidently that she is related to Richie. This is where things take a bad turn. Jane hasn't been in contact with Richie's family for many years, but she does have the phone number of Richie's older sister. I had no idea he even had any siblings at all. Jane insinuated that I won't find what I'm looking for when contacting Richie's sister. I fear the worst. It seems as though something has happened to Richie. Jane told me that Richie's sister will be able to tell me more, gave me her number, and then hung up the phone. I'm incredibly anxious to reach out to Richie's sister. This could be the end to the search that has taken me so long, but I fear that it isn't the ending that I have dreamed of. I will update this thread once I know more. Update. This is an update to my original post from a couple of days ago, which can be found here. Though my original post was only around 4 days ago, that is an eternity in Reddit time, so I am not sure if anyone will even care about this update. First and foremost, I want to thank each and every one of you who have helped me through this process and have helped me find closure on my childhood best friend and my first and only true love. This journey has been difficult. For many years, I have searched for answers on where Richie is now. Sadly, it is not good news. Deep down, I think I feared and perhaps avoided searching for Richie in case this was the outcome. With the help of everyone here and so many lovely commenters, I tracked down a distant relative to Richie, who put me in contact with Richie's older sister, a sister that I did not know existed. For the sake of clarity, I will name the sister Sarah. Sarah helped put into context Richie, his odd behavior, his unwillingness to show me his home, and his disappearance. Sarah and Richie both suffered abuse and neglect at the hands of their father, who suffered from severe mental health issues and drug-related problems for most of his adult life. Their father was terrified of the outside world, and thus kept them secluded away in secret. According to Sarah, their father was convinced that the world was months away from ending at any given time. He was convinced that the devil was planning to take over his mind and body, and was convinced that Jesus had spoken to him and told him the only way to keep him and his family safe was to keep them secluded from the outside world. Sarah shared that their father would not often be physically abusive, which I suppose is of some relief. Richie and his family would move often throughout his childhood, never staying in one place for too long, as his father feared that the devil would soon find them. Sarah said they most likely moved in the middle of the night with no forewarning, though she can't remember the specific time. They were moved from my town. This helps to explain how Richie seemed to appear one day and disappear 15 months later. Richie passed away at age 15, around 2.5 years after vanishing from my town. Sarah struggled to go into the details of Richie's death, and I didn't want to push her into sharing something that was painful for her, though it seemed that Richie took his own life. Sarah told me that Richie would often speak of me and the time we spent together, and that all Richie ever wanted to do was to come back and find me. Sadly, he never managed that. She said she thought that I was just imaginary. She isn't sure how Richie would sneak out of the house to meet with me, but said that their father would keep them locked in their rooms for days, and sometimes weeks at a time. Sarah told me she has a collection of Richie's diaries, which I do remember him writing occasionally. She has offered to send them to me, which is lovely of her. She told me that a lot of the writing is about me, about our time together, about how he wanted to find me again, so we could run away together again. She never thought I was a real person. Hearing that was so incredibly bittersweet. I look forward to reading those diaries, even though it will be incredibly difficult at the same time. She said she is glad that Richie managed to have an impact on someone in this world. I wish that I was able to express the impact that Richie had on my life. I wish I could tell Richie the impact he had on my life. I want everyone to know Richie. I want everyone to know what an amazing, kind, and beautiful person Richie was. This post is difficult for me to write. Deep down, I think that I resisted searching for Richie more in case this was the outcome. Sarah told me a lot more information, but I've decided to leave out most to respect her privacy. Sarah is away and safe from her father, which I am so glad about. Again, I just want to express how thankful I am for all of you who have helped, for all of you who have offered emotional support. Thank you so much. Richie, I love you. I'm sorry I couldn't help you. I'm sorry I didn't pick up on the signals that you were in danger. I hope you can forgive me. Richie, you were the only true friend I've ever had. It's so hard for me to write this. I feel so sick that I didn't do more. Richie, I want you to know you saved me so many times throughout my life. So many low moments in my life have been helped because of the memories of you. I am so sorry I wasn't there for you the same way you were there for me. I love you so much, Richie. New update. Hello, everyone. Almost 1 year ago, I made a Reddit post searching for answers about a childhood friend of mine who went missing. It received a moderate amount of attention, and with the people of Reddit's help, I was able to track down the relatives of my missing friend. I posted this under a different, now deleted account. However, I have sent the mods of this subreddit proof of me being the original poster. I deleted the Reddit account because, honestly, I didn't want to think about what happened to Richie anymore, as it was too painful for a long time after I discovered the truth. Recently, that post has resurfaced on this subreddit, so I thought I'd give you all an update on where I am today, how I'm doing, and how Sarah is doing. It still pains me to think about Richie, and to think about how I could have and should have helped him, and how I failed to save him. It does really hurt to look back on it. I really don't have many friends, and I suffer from pretty bad anxiety, and I just wish I had Richie here with me, Sarah, and I still occasionally talk. But not really as often as I wish we could. I have met her in real life once, which was nice. I hope that my posting this update is alright on this subreddit. It just seemed to me that so many were touched by Richie's story that I thought I would put this out there, and I'm happy to answer questions of anyone who has them. Edit. This post got a lot of replies, and I am trying to make my way through and answer as much as I can. I didn't think this post would get so much attention, especially since this was posted relatively recently. To answer a couple of the common questions, yes, I am currently in therapy. I started it not too long ago, along with some medication, as I have suffered for a while with severe anxiety. I am currently requesting permission from Sarah before I post any of Richie's journal entries, as I feel she should have the final say on if she wants those out on the internet. No, I am not writing a book about Richie. No, this is not a promotion for a book. If anyone was to write a book about Richie and his life, I would think it should be Sarah. However, she does not have any interest in sharing her story. She would much rather leave the past in the past, and honestly, I can't blame her. It really breaks my heart that there are so many people here sharing that they knew a Richie or they were a Richie. I feel like so many children, even now, go under the radar, the lives they live, and the abuse they receive, with no one there to help. It hurts to think that there could have been so many with us today who have sadly passed on and are no longer with us. I think everyone has a right to be remembered, and I am so glad that Richie has had an impact on so many people here. Also, I'm sorry if I don't respond to a comment. There are a lot here that I thought would be too difficult to respond to. I can say 1,000,000 times that I shouldn't feel guilty, and I know that also, but it is very hard not to, and it's very hard to hear that I did all I could do when Richie isn't around anymore. That might sound mopey or ungrateful. I am grateful for all the love I have been sent. I am just not entirely sure if I deserve it. This whole story broke my heart. The fact that Opie feels like they failed, Richie just makes it even more painful. But I hope they know that they were more like a glimmer of light in his darkest times. I truly hope Richie is at peace now, and Opie was one of the lucky ones who got to know him, and I'm sure he felt that too. As heartbreaking as the truth is, I'm glad Opie was able to get some closure. The not knowing is sometimes the cruelest part, wishing him all the strength and healing in the world. Some of those stories were really tough to hear. It's heartbreaking how many people carry painful memories from childhood, things they never should have had to go through in the first place. If any of today's confessions hit close to home, please take care of yourself. And as always, thank you for listening, watching, and just being here. Your support means the world. Don't forget to like the video if you found it meaningful, and feel free to share your thoughts, or just send some support to each other in the comments below. I'll see you in the next one.